Welcome to Box Out Banter. Happy President's Day and happy belated Valentine's Day, everyone. Chris Okamura, joining me as always, Jordan Christmas. Sorry about last week. We both got really busy and weren't able to record, but we're back this week.
Work stuff.
Yeah, real life stuff.
Yeah, real life stuff. Sorry about that, guys. But we back. It's all good. Box Out Banter's back.
So we're gonna start with a fun question, Jordan. We're gonna start with the. So I was thinking about this the other night. So you have every player in NBA history, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every player in NBA history in an open gym to play pickup. Like, you know how when you go 24-hour fitness and you're picking teams?
Yeah.
Except you don't know who any of these players are. But you have to make your first pick based on looks alone. Who is your first pick?
Based on looks alone?
Like, you don't know any of these guys. Like, you don't know who LeBron James is. You don't know who Magic Johnson is. You don't know who Michael Jordan is. You don't know who anyone is. But it's like you're going to the gym and you don't know who anyone is. But you're just looking at him going, all right, this guy looks like he's pretty good. You know what I'm saying?
Probably. Well, this is hard because I do. I can't just turn off my, not knowing these players. But I
have two or three top players.
I've thought of two in the past 30 seconds. So
okay.
I would go based off looks. I would go with Shaq.
Yeah,
because even as like
he's massive.
Even as an 8-year-old, I was questioning if we were a part of the same species. Like, I'm just like, holy shit, that's a big dude. And the fact that he moved so fast for his size and all that stuff,
yeah,
that was jarring. So I would definitely pick him. And then I'd probably Dr. J is the other one. It's probably two obvious ones, but like Dr. J has like the iconic, the afro and all that stuff.
So to me, the number one pick, and to me it's pretty obvious. And I thought about it right away. Dwight Howard just looks like he'd be the ultimate basketball player. If you walk into a gym and you see Dwight Howard with his shoulders, with the muscles.
Yeah, my grandma one time, I was watching a Lakers game at my grandma's house in Riverside, and it was a Lakers Magic game. It was like 2009. That's 2010, right around that time. It was like Apex. We were almost at Apex Dwight Howard, and my grandma was basically Dwight Howard was taking free throws, and my grandma was just like, "That man looks like he has bionic arms." And and she called him bionic arm. She's called him bionic arms every time she sees Dwight Howard.
When you look at Dwight, you look at him and you're going, "That's a specimen of a human being."
Yeah. Yep.
Dwight just looks like he shouldn't exist as a human.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's sculpted. He has the perfect body of like, that guy looks athletic. Like, cause Shaq, he's big, but you could sometimes you could maybe mistake it as like fat or overweight because he's just massive, right? But like Dwight, he's big, but like in the athletic way, where you look at him and you go, that guy should be able to play some basketball.
I don't know. I always thought. So upper body wise, I agree, but like I think I've always thought one of the problems with Dwight, especially when everybody was trying to turn him into a post player, well, one, he just doesn't have any feel for the post. I don't ever think he had, but I think one of the problems why he never got better in the post was because he was so skinny. Like in his legs, and it was all upper body, but like you can never. And I could tell you, as somebody who used to play center, it helps to have a big rump to move people out of the way, or a big backside, so you could carve out space. Because that's essential to a post player. Like you see Embiid do it, Jokic do it, all the good post players had it. And Dwight, just for as big and as, yes, he is a physical specimen just relative to basketball players, but like if you just look at his lower body, you could see like, oh, that's why he couldn't do anything in the post. It was all jumping really.
The last guy that I was thinking of too is LeBron, obviously.
Oh yeah, LeBron. Yeah,
because you just look at him and you go like, holy fuck, this guy shouldn't exist.
I just wanted to go off the beaten path. It's like, because I could say like Giannis, or because like all these guys, they're so big and freakish now. And like all the stars, at least they're so big and freakish, like 6'10",
Who,
6'7".
so who's the opposite of this? Who's the guy? Who's like the star NBA guy that you're just like he plays basketball, or you're surprised like fuck what's he doing?
Huh?
Is it Jokic?
No, because Jokic, you could see like the feel for his game, like eye test wise. Like you could, it looks weird, but it's like I'm like, okay, that guy. To me,
Are we just adjusted to it? Are we adjusted to seeing him do all this stuff? Like if you're
I guess I am adjusted to him doing all this stuff, but I never thought he was like out of place as a basketball player.
If you saw a guy that looked like Jokic on a basketball court, like you know when you go to you can go to any park in America, any gym in America, and there's a guy shooting by himself on a half court, waiting for someone to ask him to play.
Well, Jokic's athleticism kind of reminds me of my frat brother Pomeran, who played D2 college basketball, and he would kind of joke like he was Jokic in the sense that like he could, shuffle up the court running and barely jumping. Like I've seen Jokic's not okay. That's it. It sounds really blasphemous, but like I've seen Jokic body types, I guess, in pickup games, but like. If I guess like Joe Ingles would be the obvious answer. Yeah. Joe Ingles would be the obvious answer. Shit, like I guess try to think of all the third string centers in the late 2000s that were signed basically just to foul the shit out of Shaq. Probably a lot of those guys. Matt Geiger on the Sixers. Like, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm gonna have to think about that one.
Even to like, and this is blasphemous. If you saw Steve Nash in an empty gym, not shooting, like just saw him in a gym, you're not gonna pick him first. He's like one of the last guys you're picking.
Yeah. If you didn't know who he was,
if you didn't know who he was, like Steve Nash just looks wise, he's like one of the last guys you're picking on your team.
Because of course, that would be
undersized white guy.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. There's definitely going to be that thing where if a player is white, who doesn't know basketball, they're not. They're just going to automatically.
Jeremy Lin?
Yeah, Jeremy Lin wouldn't be picked either.
Dude, Jeremy Lin had trouble getting into the NBA because because of how he looked.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
By the way, he's killing the G League. By the way.
Yeah, he should. Jeremy Lin is he's carved out a nice NBA career. Unfortunately, he suffered injuries towards the end of it, but he turned himself into a good player.
The thing with Jeremy was he had some elite level quickness, intelligence, and you could tell he was like coached up to a T. Like he had learned so much and he had worked so hard to like get to where he was, where he had a lot of solid fundamentals. Given with his quickness too.
Yeah, he ended up turning into a really nice rotation guard. And in Charlotte, I thought it was really sad that he, like, kind of in his prime, he got put with other ball dominant players a little too often. Like, Kemba and all that.
Kemba, Melo, Kobe, Harden. Like, he never got to, like, we saw what he could do in his kind of prime with obviously Linsanity, but like even after Linsanity, like he is a solid guy that can run your offense and like really you can run offense through him. But the problem is when you have other ball dominant guards or not guards, but just ball dominant players and scorers along with him, it just diminishes his value so much.
If Jeremy Lin was like born 5 years later, he would probably be an effective rotation guard in today's NBA, or at least had more of a shot to carve out that type of role, because he was a solid ball handler. And I've mentioned on the podcast before, I should have appreciated Linsanity a bit more, but I guess I got annoyed with the anointing of the superstar. But I always thought like, okay, this guy's solid. He has a solid handle. Like he's just like whatever the cliche of pure point guard is, like Jeremy Lin is that. Like he could run. He was solid at running pick and rolls. Probably just the thing is like he needed the ball in his hands to reach that potential, and the question obviously is always like, do you want to build everything around a Jeremy Lin led team? And it was like, well, the answer is probably no, but he was definitely a solid guard.
If he was ever able to play with an off ball scorer, like if he played with DeMar DeRozan, right? Where like DeMar's your star, obviously, and the one that you want to have the ball and like to be your main scoring option, but he needs someone to get him the ball, and like he's best kind of catch and shooting off the not off the dribble, but sort of just cutting. Where I think that Lin,
I can see this version of DeMar DeRozan this year,
Where like you know, or even if you pair him with a big, right? Like if you give Lin a dominant big that needs the ball, I think that could be a solid option as well, right? Like I don't think you build a team around Jeremy Lin. I don't think you're in a bad spot if he's like your second or third best player.
I really wanted to see like what Houston Jeremy Lin was like, but because they gave him
that big extension to get rid of.
Yeah, that big poison pill type contract. But then like obviously Harden and then Parsons started coming along. Think about that. Chandler Parsons was like if he didn't have the knee injuries, he would have been a really good stretch forward for today's NBA because he was 6'10". He could legit handle. He could, kind of like that. Who, by the way, we have gotten some stuff wrong on these contracts. Well, at least so far this year. You know, I'm always willing to change.
I do want to give up. We should do a props segment on this. We'll do it in a minute.
yeah. But Chandler Parsons is another player I think about. I think about Andre Karolinko too, kind of like in that same. Yeah, I think Karolinko's a
AK-47 would have killed in
AK-47. Like there is like he would have been. I know he would have been an advanced metrics darling with how he could get steals, how he could pass, rebound, how he could shoot.
He's the prototype Giannis. Like what you want from Giannis is what. Think
about those late 2000 Jazz teams. They kind of had some futuristic players like Mehmet Okur definitely would have been perfect for today's NBA. Darren Williams was the big point guard who could score but also pass.
Carlos Boozer
was really good. Like I know his Bulls Boozer and Lakers Boozer became a meme, and we all remember how he spray painted his hair black a national television game. But Carlos Boozer in Utah was really good, and that team was really underrated. Like the Chris Paul Hornets in the late 2000s.
I missed the Chris Paul's Hornets.
Yeah, the Chris Paul Darren Williams battles were fun to watch, but we should talk about the current NBA before we get too far down the rabbit hole. Of
so that's my fun question. That's my fun question for the day.
I'm glad we started out with the fun question. I just woke up from a nap. I got my coffee, and now my engine is really started because that question definitely caught me off guard. I was like, oh, okay, I got to get the brain running now.
It's such a weird question, but I love it because it's a thing of. I think everyone has that experience where you walk into a gym or a park that you don't know, and you want to play pickup, and you're like, well, who's good? And you don't know, right? You're going off of maybe seeing one or two people shoot, and then basically what they look like, and like what they're wearing, right? Like if you got a sweat sleeve, if you got a shooting sleeve on and a wristband, fucking I'm
actually gonna assume, or I'm gonna be wary of that because I think I also have seen people who wear a lot of gear and they're actually
if you
have the headband, the sleeve, and then the tight compressors, I'm just like, nah, I'm not picking you.
That's the guy that's bad but tries to tell you how to play. That's the guy. That's the guy that raises his hand and says, I'm playing point.
It's like, oh, I need you to cut. It's like, wait, I can't cut with three guys in the lane. Everybody's trying to post up. But so we're more than a quarter of a way through the NBA season now, and a lot of stuff's weird because people are picking all-star teams with like 37 games played when usually like more than halfway. He's usually more than halfway. And we're going to pick our all-star teams next week. But I've wanted to bring that up because we're kind of at a mile marker point in the season now where we're kind of starting to see who the contenders are, how less talented, for me at least, not less talented the East is. Well, I guess less talented than what I thought, because I've really been Oh, well, I'm sure you heard the Bill Simmons podcast today with Kevin O'Connor. Bill
I
was
haven't watched it
basically
yet.
Bill was having a therapy session about the Celtics. And I know I rolled my eyes. I was like, great, we're starting off the podcast with another 20-minute Celtics segment, but it was actually kind of hilarious.
Is it
Considering
him coming to the realization that Danny Ainge is not that great a DM?
I think he's good, but it was like, it's funny. I had my friend Evan on my Sly Hooper podcast to talk about the Cavs, and at one point we brought up Brad Stevens, and I was and he wanted to say Brad Stevens was overrated, and I was like, say it. I was like Emperor Palpatine. I was like, say it. He's overrated. Say it. And we were just like, yeah, he's overrated. He's still good, but I think Danny Ainge is overrated too, because like he brought up a good point. Like the Celtics, like at some points, eventually you have to overpay for something. Like if you want somebody in the draft, go up and get the guy. That's what you have the war.
If you want Anthony Davis, fucking flip one. Like,
yeah,
take a shot.
Although I will say, I do think they need to get their shit together now more, because I do think you can build easily around 2 stars like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right? Interchangeable wings, really good two-way players. Tatum's improving as a passer. Brown is blown all my expectations away coming into the draft.
I didn't see this coming at all.
I did not see this coming. Like, he says that one of his favorite players is T-Mac, and in terms of like his quick pull-up, like his quick trigger dribble pull-up, I could definitely see like he was practicing that shot in the backyard after seeing some T-Mac highlights. I thought you were about to
compare him
to
T-Mac.
I'm like, hell no. Hell no, I'm not. Hey, okay, let me get something straight. Players obviously idolize players, right?
Yeah. You can see the inspiration, right?
When I see the thank you for putting it in a better phrase so I don't get clipped. There, I see the inspiration behind some of his moves. Like,
as soon as you brought up T-Mac, I was like, "Where's this going? Where's this going?"
I'm glad you got me to. I'm glad you reined me back in, because I did not mean to say he's as good as T-Mac, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there's inspiration behind some of his moves, and I didn't think he would master those moves. I thought he would be like a 22, 23 point per game scorer. This dude is a legit.
I thought his ceiling was like an Andre Iguodala, like Warriors Andre Iguodala, where he's just like kind of a role player, like high quality defender, guy that you'd love to have on a team, but like not a reliable go-to scorer. He's becoming a reliable go-to scorer.
Yeah, this is like 2 years now of like, okay, so or this is now more than almost 2 full seasons now of this, and it's like they should have the 2 stars now. They just got to build around them, but they've been whiffing on so many draft picks. And also, I want to be fair, Marcus Smart's been hurt. Kemba Walker, though, think about this.
What is up with his hip?
The Gordon Hayward decision. And the Gordon Hayward decision not to trade for Miles Turner. Think about how big that is.
I don't know why they didn't do that. Because now looking at
now Tristan Thompson, he's been performing under expectations. He has not been good. And Daniel Tice, he's gotten better as a player. But if Daniel Tice is your starting center, okay, Embiid has already destroyed him. Giannis has already destroyed him. Like,
and even if you get past that, then you have to go either Anthony Davis or Jokic or Gobert.
That's the thing. If things break right for the Jazz and they end up in the finals, Daniel Tice is just going to get annihilated by Gobert. Well, like the Jazz annihilated the Celtics the other night, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they've underperformed. And think about this: the Gordon Hayward non-trade decision, and then the decision to trade for Kemba Walker, basically, and let Terry Rozier walk. And even though I was like, okay, I would take Kemba over Terry, the fact is the Hornets are winning that side of the deal right now on both counts. And it's kind of interesting, like how all of a sudden there's a lot less talent around this Celtics team. Peyton Pritchard is really their best rookie out of this litter of draft picks. Nesmith hasn't been playing. Robert Williams is starting to slowly come along, but he's still not there yet. And this team is trying to compete right now. They're on their extensions with Brown and Tatum. So
it's so interesting. Remember, we were talking earlier this year when, like, right before the season, we were like, well, I don't know what Detroit's doing. Maybe they're stacking up on bigs until people need them. And then we kind of laughed of like, who needs bigs? There's a lot of teams that need bigs. Like a lot.
Well, we kind of joked. We're just like, maybe the Pistons are like it's kind of like the Dogecoin or
Yeah,
Robin
you
Hood
just
shit.
stock up until
Just
you need.
stock up, hold hold the fort. What is it? Hold the line.
Yeah, hold the line.
They have the Pistons have diamond hands with these bigs, and now like say the Brooklyn Nets come calling, hey, I need a bouncy big. I need a bouncy big that's a passer. How's Mason Plumlee looking out there? Because
Yeah,
DeAndre Jordan can't get rebounds anymore. It's always crazy to be like, DeAndre Jordan is still athletic, right? But like he's lost a bit of that athleticism to where it doesn't make him an effective player, as much of an effective
he's
player
lost
as he
his
used to.
motor too.
Like
He's
he's lost
not.
his yeah.
He's
Yeah.
more so than the athleticism. Just like there's no. Because the thing that I loved about DeAndre Jordan,
Well, there's no
with the
Doc Rivers to get in his ass either.
well, yeah, but the thing I loved about DeAndre Jordan with like Lob City, and again, I wasn't a huge fan of those Lob City teams because I thought that they didn't have. I was never a Blake Griffin guy, but anyway,
There's some Laker bias in there too. You can admit it.
But I just didn't. I never thought they had like a. They just never seemed cohesive to me. But anyway,
yeah.
The thing that I loved about DeAndre Jordan was that he always had like second, third efforts. Like he was always fighting on the glass.
Yeah,
and I loved it. And I love the fire there.
He was among the league leaders in rebounding for a while.
Absolutely, and it's. Well, I want to bring it up in a prop section too about Kuzma. It's just like when you see a guy go in there and like understand what he's there to do and understand like I'm here to rebound and get boards and like battle and like go in there and battle. And that's what his role is here with the Nets, but he's not given the effort anymore. And it's probably the age.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's definitely a lot of it is age.
I can't do this for 48 minutes a game, right? Or I can't, as long as they need me. Like they have Jeff Green playing the 5, and man, it's scary to watch Jeff Green play the 5. And I like Jeff Green too.
He's an effective. I will say Jeff Green is an effective 5, but stretch has with the Rockets. He showed that he could be an effective stretch 5, and with the Nets, he's been good also. That's because he's playing with great players, obviously. But like, yeah, when it comes playoff time, this is why it was a bummer that the Nets did not have Durant or Kyrie in both of these Sixers-Nets matchups. I really wanted to see how they matched up against the Nets because, like, the Sixers probably have they're short a perimeter defender because you have to check Irving, Durant, and Harden, and we really have Simmons and Thibault, and Harris is probably going to get one of those two, whoever's left over, right? But, like, they have no answer for Embiid or Simmons for that matter, or unless you put Durant on Simmons, but you're asking Kevin Durant already to be one of your best defenders at 32 coming off an Achilles. And we've talked about the Nets before, but like back with DeAndre, like Harden will throw him like those old school Lob City lobs like twice, and then like he'll keep trying it. And I'm sure DeAndre the whole game's just like, dude, I can't jump that high anymore that many times. Like 2's the max for me.
Do you remember one time we walked in to. So I used to work at ArcLight in Sherman Oaks. There's a movie theater. So I was a manager there, and eventually I was a projectionist, but at the time I was a manager, and I was walking the floor, and there's a big crowd of people, and these 2 gigantic humans, and I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" And I look over, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's Blake Griffin and it's DeAndre Jordan."
Yeah, that ArcLight's the theater where all the celebs and shit go to.
Yeah, like, well, I got to know Kareem really well. Like Kareem's agent had my phone number for a long time because he used to come in and like I used to set him up with stuff. So I have Kareem autograph cards because of that. But anyway, we walked. They're walking through, and people are saying hi, whatever. And then all of a sudden, someone from the back yells, "Clippers suck," and and they both turn their heads around. And then, dude, it's so good. It was so.
That is such an LA fucking thing because
it's so great.
It's totally a Lakers town still. Like you just get that subtle reminder. Clippers suck. Yeah, I don't care if you're in the same room as me.
It's so good, dude. It's on the other spectrum. There was a time I met Lamar Odom, and it was one of the saddest and most yet most heartwarming things I've ever seen.
Yeah, he seems to be doing well now. Which
so at the time when I was working there, it was around it was at the peak of his like issues. Mm-hmm. So he comes in one day, and he's like clearly out of it, like clearly just like struggling to move, and like he just wants to chill out and bake in a movie theater.
Mhm.
And so, you know, normally with that we'd call for, you know, an ambulance or call someone, or, you know, call the police of like, hey, this is like, there's this the junkie in the movie theater. But no, we took care of him. We made sure he needed any help. We walked him to his theater. We got him whatever he needed, and like everyone took care of him, and like was just understanding that, hey, he's going through some shit, and
Yeah.
you know, we don't need to make his life any harder than it already is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just give him his space, and everyone's real nice to him. And you know, I was like, dude, he doesn't even know where he is right now. But it's like, you know,
Yeah.
just let him go through his thing and do what you can to help him. Like there's no reason for us to
Yeah.
call the cops or anything.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Though, yeah, it was, I'm glad he's out of,
Absolutely.
that he's out of this stuff now too. Cause like there was all those wild stories. And I remember like TMZ was like tracking like, you know, his stuff that was going on in Vegas. Right. And,
Yeah.
I just remember like being like, oh my God, like just basically hoping and, you know, wanting him to pull through, because he was an awesome player too. I mean, I'm sure you know, for the
Oh yeah, I love Lamar.
he was I was actually watching some of the Celtics Lakers finals, because for some reason the last like week, and I need to watch today's Thinking Basketball because they released a video on him, but I've been watching Kevin Garnett stuff for the last like week and a half, 2 weeks. And so I ended up watching some of the Celtics Lakers series from the '08 finals, and those are some battles, man.
KG,
and the Lakers
KG's one of
were
my favorite players.
yeah.
But yeah, I could you imagine Lamar Odom with more intensity, like more fire? Because I feel I like Lamar, when you look at him, he had all of the talents and all the skills that like you would see in like a LeBron or a Luka today, of just like, he's a big guy that can run your offense and can shoot, can dribble, can play defense, can rebound, can do all this stuff. He just never had the fire. He always like sleptwalked through games. I used to laugh when I was a kid. My dad used to say that Lamar Odom's the only person that could play 35 minutes and not sweat.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then when they became a contender, it got serious.
Yeah.
But speaking of contenders, we should fast forward back to the present. In the West, I'm wondering, I know we talked about the Jazz the last podcast we were on. I have to say, I'm starting to, when you start watching more games and you look into the numbers and you look at the season Mitchell's having, which Shaq wants to take all the credit for, I just want to say Mitchell has been averaging the same numbers before the Shaq interview and then after the Shaq interview. And Mitchell has been fantastic all year. So no, Shaq, you don't get credit. That is one of the gripes I have with one of the few gripes I have with Inside the NBA, although I don't get bothered by it. I don't get bothered by the show as a whole, like a lot of people do. Like we talked about, it's entertainment and stuff, but like it is dangerous, especially when Chuck says like, oh, when the Mavs were on and they were bricking all those threes against the Warriors, and Chuck called the players dumbasses playing dumbass basketball, and I don't want to watch this shit. Like, when you say that on a national stage, that's where that type of casual fan gets created, the ones that I hate arguing with. And it's like,
I think
there is a propensity for older players to, for some reason, go at the younger generation.
I mean, that's why I love, speaking of KG, I love what he said a couple weeks ago.
Me too.
It was such a perfect statement for him to say. But the thing with looking deeper into the Charles argument, I think we agree for different reasons, if that makes sense. Like, I think for him, it's more of a don't shoot so many threes. My thing goes back to a thing where I don't understand the Mavericks game plan. I just don't agree with the game plan of, okay, your threes aren't falling. That's okay. But you have a clear size advantage. Like, there's an adjustment that has to be made to where, let's drive the basketball. Let's go inside. Let's use our size. Let's use Porzingis. Let's post him up. Let's do more stuff that way. Where they just weren't. There was like a refusal to adjust. And
kept
shooting threes. And again, like when Charles says dumbass basketball, I think I agree with him in a certain way of like, yeah, you have to make adjustments. I don't think that's what he meant. You know what I'm saying? Like we both agree that
I think he was saying it more in the vein of these guys are shooting jumpers. Like he had that whole jump shooting shtick before the Warriors won a championship eventually.
So again, like I think I agree with him that like it's kind of a dumbass basketball, but I think we disagree for the reasons why.
I do agree with you though that like you want to make adjustments, of course. Like if you want to go more inside, because I don't think the Mavs have a size advantage, but they don't have like players to leverage that size, right?
I mean,
so
the
like
only one
I would
really
say
like
I would say post up Luka. I would say post up Luka.
You can invert the offense, right?
Yeah, invert the offense a little bit if it's not working, because I think Porzingis at this point, he is what he is. He's going to be a shooter. I don't think you can really ask him to post up.
I mean, I still think all game. I still think he's a post fade player. I think he has that ability to do that, and he has.
He does. He has that.
He has moves. He's not Dwight Howard where he has no moves. Like he can post up and he has up and unders. He can
definitely shoot over the top, but I think that's really all he has. It's so like I would just get.
I mean, I would rather have if you have a size advantage. If the guy guarding you, because Porzingis, I can't remember. I think that game like Porzingis there was no one that could guard him.
Yeah, the Warriors had no thinners,
and so it was like, okay, well, just instead of taking that three that you're taking, take it a little closer and just kind of shoot over the top of people. There's no reason for you to keep taking these threes that you're missing over and over and over again. And so again, when Charles says dumbass basketball, I go, my first reaction is, yeah, I agree, and these are my reasons why. And then I'd look into Charles' reasons why, and I'm like, no, we disagree as to why this is dumb.
That's the thing with inside the NBA, right? Like sometimes they'll get to the right destination, but they take a different route.
Yeah, the way to get there is like completely wrong. I was like, okay, you're right. I was like, you're right, but I disagree with how you're.
Yeah. I get it, but I bring that up because the Utah Jazz, I'm starting to, especially if they keep the 1 seed, they don't have to play the Lakers until the Western Conference Finals. I think they're starting to reach the point. Remember the 2014 Spurs where they just reached peak in terms of movement, player movement, ball movement, and shooting, and just being a cohesive unit because they had played together for a long time. I think the Jazz are starting to reach that level. We're starting to see. You see it in games, but now they're reaching that point to where you're starting to see nightly clips on Twitter where the ball is just hopping around and they're getting open shots. And I think Donovan Mitchell has done a great job carrying the Jazz in the non-Gobert minutes. Kevin O'Connor brought this stat up, and it makes a lot of sense. But one of the reasons Conley is having a resurgent year is because he's playing 85 to 90% of his minutes with Gobert, and he's never had a pick and roll player that dynamic. Like Gasol was a great dance partner, but he was more of a I'm going to post you up, I'm going to fade to the basket. Rudy Gobert is one of the elite screen guys in the NBA. He has been for a long time, and Conley's kind of finding some resurgence, and Mitchell is left carrying the scoring load because he's played only 40% of his minutes with Gobert, but he's doing a great job carrying the load. And I think the questions about him being the best guy on a championship team are fair, but I think on this particular team, the Jazz can win a championship with Donovan Mitchell being a star in his role as a scorer. And he could play make a little bit too, because he's upped his assist a little bit, but like this is the most efficient season of his career so far. And the Jazz have multiple guys who can dribble, shoot, and pass. And I think while they won't necessarily have the super defenders. Yeah, and they have great defenders as well. And I don't think in the playoffs when they don't have the superstar necessarily to, carry a team in the rough stretches of a playoff game. But I do think they have enough ball handlers and shooters and a dynamic scorer in Mitchell, especially when he catches fire, that they have such a great defense and a good ball movement offense that I just think if things break right, they could be the ones playing the Lakers in the conference finals. Because think about this too. They've been together for a while now, at least a lot of that core. Bogdanovich was kind of hurt last year, but him and Conley now are well adjusted to this system. They have their 9 guys. They have Clarkson. They have Niang coming off the bench. They have Derek Favors being a backup center, and he's a really solid player. They just have 9 solid. They go 9 deep with solid dudes, and then they could probably go 10 if they wanted to. They probably have They have players at the back end of the bench developing as well. And I like what I've seen from the Jazz so far, and I am now buying them as a contender in the like a legit contender relative to the Lakers. Of course, I think I think the Lakers are still the clear favorite, but I think the Jazz have started separating themselves from the rest of the pack in the West.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think that they're the first of the teams, though, just because I think they're the ones that are clicking the soonest, just because, again, like they've been around the longest. I think that we're gonna start seeing teams like the Suns.
Oh, the Suns have been playing well lately.
Yeah, but I think like the Suns, I could see the Nuggets as well. And I could see some other teams start to climb up and start to hit their like, not inflection point, but I can see them start to hit their motor and start to go. Where I think the Jazz have figured it out, and they're going to the races. Where I think now we're going to start to see, now that we're getting to the back half of the season, I think we're going to start to see some of these teams kind of hit their stride. And it's gonna start to snowball out, where you're going to start to clearly see the difference. And honestly, I think, and it's weird for me to say this, I think we talk about them every week, and I feel so bad because I feel like other teams to talk about. I feel like the Pelicans are getting close to that point too, because I think the trade rumors fired up Lonzo. I think the combination of the trade rumors and LaMelo balling out both fired up Lonzo, and he's figured something out. Because when you watch him play, especially with Zion, he's doing he's not holding the ball anymore. He's figuring out where to get Zion the ball in places, and Zion's thriving.
I also think Stan Van Gundy pulled the and Dwayne Wade himself actually talked about it as I bring up this example. But in, what was it, Dwayne Wade's third year in Miami, Stan Van Gundy decided to move him to the shooting guard pretty much because they tried to make him point guard. And he's kind of done that with Zion, but in a different way. He's putting the ball in his hands a lot more on the perimeter so he can attack because his first step is ridiculous. And I think in turn, it's helped Lonzo fall into place. The Pelicans have lost 3 in a row. I cannot get a damn read on the Pelicans. Like,
no, it's so weird.
And eventually, I'm going to get to the point where it's kind of like, okay, you are who you are at this point. You're just going to be an up and down young team unless a move happens at the trade deadline. But
well, it's weird because I watch them in stretches. I'm like, man, this seems really good, and then they're down by 20. I'm like, how?
Yeah, it's really a strange. It's really just a strange dichotomy just watching this team, because for stretches, you're just like, oh, Zion's attacking the rim. Brandon Ingram's running some pick and roll with Zion, hit him with a pocket pass. They're starting to figure out how to put Adams on the court along with Zion, having him attack from the perimeter. Lonzo Ball, his 3-point shot is coming back. And then you look, they've lost 3 in a row. They're 11-15, although they're still a game out of the play-in tournament, but it's just, they're still terrible defensively. They're 28th in defensive rating, but their offense is 7th, and it's kind of like the same profile as last year, which is really weird because Stan was supposed to be brought in to be this guy that'll shore up the Pelicans to be an average defensive team, maybe. But, Kyra Lewis is starting to play more, which is nice. Eric Bledsoe is also apparently shooting the hell out of the ball. Also, but I would still trade him. He's shooting 40% from 3 this year, which is by far his career high. I wonder how much of that. I know it's a quarter of a way through the season, so I can't say small sample size. We just never seen Eric Bledsoe shoot 40% from 3 for an entire season. So I'll believe it when the season's over, I guess. I guess I'm just going to be stubborn about that. But this Pelicans team is weird, man, and I can't hope for them to just figure it out eventually, because I think they're kind of are who they are at this point, I guess, if that makes sense.
I think the thing with me is it goes down to just them. They give up a lot of games. Like they'll be up and like killing teams, and then they'll just give it up. And so I think like just that was a trend too with the the young core Lakers with Lonzo and Ingram, where they would just give up games.
Yeah.
Where, like I always said, the Lakers before LeBron got there, that were with the young core, where it's Ingram, Lonzo.
The one where Luke
Kuz.
Walton got them to 15th in defensive rating, and that bought him another chance to get a coaching job.
Yeah, but like that year was, they were, when you look at their stats, they were up in the third going into the fourth quarter, and I think over half of those games they lost. And it's like, oh well, they just can't play fourth quarter. It's like, what?
Yeah,
they're either ahead or tied in over like almost half of those games that they lost. And you're like, well, they're young. I get that. And maybe that could be a symptom here too. But I mean, I don't know. You got to ask, like, how much veteran leadership does someone like Steven Adams bring, which I think is quite a bit. I think he's actually pretty important for like a culture standpoint.
I need to watch the whole podcast, but I've seen
he's
sections
fantastic.
of it. But JJ Redick had him on the podcast, and anytime Steven Adams talks, he's just an interesting dude. But I would highly recommend that to people.
He's awesome. He's just this New Zealand fucking Jason Momoa
he definitely
guy.
has that New Zealand vibe, and he's just like, I'm just rolling with the wind and stuff like that. Like, he has that type of vibe around it, and he's pretty interesting when he talks, especially when he talks about the league and stuff. But a
very interesting dude. I think a very intelligent dude. I think he's a great leader. I think he's a great vet to have around Zion, just as a person. We can argue fit all day, but like I think as a human, he's a great mentor.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's definitely a great teammate.
And then putting him with JJ too. I just like the teaching and the leadership that they've put around these like young kids.
Yeah.
But
eventually they have to play better, especially
eventually
Stan Van Gundy is going to have to, do something, because he was supposed to be. And this was my worry with Stan Van Gundy. Like, I think he's a good coach still, but whenever I see him, especially with the Pistons, although to be fair, he was also the president of basketball operations, which is a disaster to have two dual roles like that. I always think that's a disaster. But I was afraid like the game might have passed him a little bit, and I'm fearing that might be the case. Although he's tried stuff, definitely. I think putting the ball in Zion's hands more is definitely a forward-thinking move. But we'll see.
They're doing a great job of getting him the ball early, and teams don't know when Zion catches the ball at like top of the key. It's terrifying because teams don't know how to, because he's such a smart passer and he makes the right play, but he's so quick and he's so big that once he gets ahead of steam, you can't stop him. So it's such a weird puzzle piece. He's such a weird puzzle piece for teams to solve. And it makes defenses think in a way that you wouldn't if he was just posting up all the time. But I think they're interesting. I think they're fascinating. I think if I could see them if any team's going to put pieces together, I think they're like a surprise team that you can be like, oh wow, they just because they did it last year too. Where halfway through the season, right after All-Star break, they were like, oh, the Pelicans figured it out.
Yeah, the difference between the 8th seed and the 14th seed right now is 2.5 games. There's a lot of jumbled teams. My Rockets are starting to fall behind, and it's been shitty ever since Christian Wood went down. They've lost a lot of production there, and that means Boogie's going to have to play more minutes than maybe he should, and there's not really much left behind, the backup center spot. And the Rockets, when they were whole for like that whole 2-week stretch, when they were like
fun.
6-3, they were like first in defensive rating. Their offense was kind of janky, but it worked also. I really like this Rockets team, and then of course the Christian Wood injury happened, and that looked like a really terrible ankle turn too. And I hope he gets back soon. But Oladipo might have suffered a leg injury in the Miami game, the TNT game last week, and who knows how long that'll affect him. It's just the Rockets. They have a lot of players that I like. The reason they were fun is because they are fun. Is because they have a lot of rough and tough, rugged dudes on the team. Like Jayshawn Tate is a really good rookie. John Wall, Victor Oladipo. You just think of guys with chips on their shoulder. Christian Wood. I mean, he called Shaq a casual on national TV.
Awesome.
Yeah, which is awesome. And then, of course, you got Boogie, PJ Tucker. Eric Gordon has been a really good defender this year. Like the Rockets just have I like their personnel. It's just the problem with a team like the Rockets is they kind of have to be healthy and stuff has to break right for them to win some games, because in a league where offense is more and more starting to become king, they're kind of getting outclassed in that way. And maybe we're seeing the limitations of a John Wall-led team, because teams are still going under on his screen and rolls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they were an interesting team, and I still think all these teams have a chance. The Thunder, the Pelicans, the Rockets, the Sacramento Kings, they've been struggling a little bit. They hit a 3-game rut after playing well. Like the Mavericks are starting to finally at least figure some stuff out before their
offense is shooting back up.
Yeah, their offense is shooting back up. They lost the other night to Portland, but that was more because, their defense. But it's the West at the bottom is like, it's a bloodbath, man. I think it's crazy to me that the Spurs are 16-11 with a bunch of young dudes and DeMar DeRozan. LaMarcus Aldridge is washed at this point. I think if you look at any lineup data that involves LaMarcus Aldridge, is kind of is bad, and he looks bad too, and might be getting to that point. But I mean, the Spurs are the 6th seed, man. The Blazers, Damian Lillard is like carrying this team. He's willing this team. No CJ McCollum, no Nurkic. Zach Collins out for the year again. Harry Giles is their backup center behind Enes Kanter, who's starting. And they're really relying. Gary Trent Jr. is good. Robert Covington's going through his usual shooting slump, but they really don't have much else besides Melo popping off every 3 games. Like, what the Blazers are doing is incredible, but I think, to me, the class of the West right now is definitely the Lakers, Jazz, Clippers, and Suns. It sucks that Paul George has the bone endemia in his toe, and I've read up on that injury. It sounds like he could be out for a bit, if the prognosis is what it is. And then I still think the Nuggets, they have a run in them. I don't think Jokic has been the reason why the Nuggets have been up and down to start. I think it's because they lost a bunch of important defensive personnel. And Paul Millsap's a year older. Michael Porter Jr. is learning the defensive end of the court, if I could be nice about it. But I still think the Nuggets at the end of the day will make it to this tier as well. So I think there's a clear tier now for me in the West, with the Lakers heading that crop.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I also have a lot of belief in the Nuggets. I think that Michael Porter Jr., the more I watch him, the more special I think he is. Agreed. And I know, like, I've heard people say the other way, where like they're concerned defensively. I just think, like, when you have a guy that's with that kind of size,
and can shoot like that,
can shoot like him, he has such a fluidity to his movement and such a natural, like,
and he's a scorer, but he doesn't need the ball.
Yeah, like, he has such a natural aptitude to score. Like, he's cutting and he's doing the extra stuff that you normally don't see out of young kids like that. Like, I just see, to me, the sky's the limit for that dude.
At most, it's like 1 dribble, 2 dribbles, but he's pulling that shit quickly, and it's usually going in because he's a great shooter. Like, he's definitely, his future is bright. And I agree with you. We do kind of harp on the defense a little bit. It's just that where this team is at right now, just in terms of their status as a contender, they kind of need Michael Porter to pick it up a little bit more. But as far as development, Michael Porter's right where I think he's going to be special.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
So I do have a question for you.
Okay.
One,
shoot.
Do you think Derrick Rose loves Tibbs as much as Tibbs loves him? And what does this trade do to the Knicks? Because we didn't get to talk about this last week.
Oh, well, I do think it's the other way around, because Tibbs just can't get enough of the players that used to put up with his shit all the time, like Jimmy Butler, Derrick Rose, etc. I mean, look, it's helped the Knicks recently. I'm sure. I don't know. I would have just left the team as is, because I think Derrick Rose is just more of a stopgap move.
Well, to me, Derrick Rose right now is he's best served as a luxury piece for a contender. Like he is like the over the hump guy of like, hey, we need one extra push to get us into this contender spot. Like I think if he went to the Clippers, they would instantly shoot up to me as a contender.
I guess to replace the Reggie Jackson minutes, but then it's like the same thing to me. It's like they don't have a point guard to set up the table, even with Paul George and Kawhi's improved playmaking. You know,
but at least it gives you a little more levity to like, okay, here's someone else that I can trust with the ball, where it's not just Lou Williams.
Like, I get you. I just wouldn't have. I guess they didn't give up much. I like second round picks, so I wouldn't have traded my 2021 second round pick for if I was a middling team like the Knicks. I just to
me the Knicks haven't done a good job in general with the draft picks. Like we'll talk about Emmanuel quickly in a second, but like they in general they haven't done a great job finding diamonds in the rough in the back end of the drafts.
Yeah.
So I could see why you want to make this move, and again, like if Tibbs wants him, okay, I guess this is working, and they're playing great basketball. I think they can make the playoffs.
They are. What are they? They're the 7th seed right now. Our Charlotte Hornets, by the way, are the 6th seed in the East at 13 and 15. See, I thought 3 through 7. I thought 3 through 7 was going to be solidified. But the Heat are still trying to find their way. They're in the play-in, but yeah, the Hornets are looking good ever since LaMelo started, and kind of been clamoring for that. Unfortunately, it took an injury for that to happen. But like I said, I really love the backcourt of LaMelo and Terry Rozier. As much as I want them to fade for Cade, I really like what I've seen from shout out Nick Agar Johnson. He said that to me the other day. I can't take the credit for that.
For Cade. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, fade for Cade. But LaMelo's been spectacular. The thing about LaMelo is like it's not just like there will be games where he won't put up the gaudy numbers that he's been putting up every other game as of late, but like there's a pace and a different energy that his other teammates play with when he's on the court. Like Melo sees even the simple passes LaMelo makes, like he puts a little extra spin on the ball to give the receiver the extra split second to make a move and beat their defender. Like he'll pass it ahead of time. Like there's just he's just a special ball mover. And if he realizes that, like, if he starts realizing his scoring potential, that's just going to open up more passing lanes for him.
Right now, if he continues to hit the three the way that he's hitting his three,
that's the big thing.
I don't know how you stop him. Like I hesitate to call someone unstoppable because it's such a generic term. But LaMelo right now, if he's hitting his threes, he is unstoppable because he can get to he has such a perfect frame to get to the basket.
Yeah.
He has good feel, good touch to get around the basket. He has good quickness. He's again like a savant passer and intelligent basketball player. So the only thing you can really do is play off of him. But if he's hitting his threes, especially the deep ones that he's hitting pretty consistently, like I don't know how you can't stop him.
So
there's no way to stop him.
So in the last 8 games, all games he started, he's averaging 21 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, nearly 2 steals a game on 43%, on 44 basically percent shooting from the 3-point line on over 7 attempts per game. And he's been awesome. And he is now starting to, I'm not saying he's pulling away, but I've put him ahead of Tyrese Halliburton for Rookie of the Year.
I think he's already pulled away, but that's just my opinion.
Well, no, I think Tyrese Halliburton has been. I think he's been just as good. Not lately because LaMelo's starting, but I think before LaMelo started, for me it was not clearly Halliburton. I thought LaMelo and Halliburton were in a class by themselves. But after this recent stretch, I that's why I put LaMelo ahead of Halliburton. And if he keeps playing this way, I think he's going to run away with Rookie of the Year because now he's starting and he's producing.
There's one of my predictions.
Yeah, there it is. He's definitely hitting the. Remember, we were saying he was a low floor, high ceiling type of guy. He's definitely. The thing is with him, he's always had the qualities to where it was more likely he had a better chance of hitting the high ceiling just because he was a good passer and his feel for the game and stuff. And now he's hitting the three, which is, we'll see if it comes down and stuff. Like now his average is up to 35% on the season. So we'll see if he comes back down to earth. But you could definitely see that the shooting is there for him, or the development's there for him to be a better shooter. Like there's a lot of ground to uncover.
When you watch him, now that he's been starting, I don't know how closely you've watched the last like 3 or 4 games. He's playing some fantastic defense. He's using his floor sense to like really play passing lanes really well.
He's playing passing lanes really well. I've seen him. I do see him get caught out in no man's land when he's like playing free safety sometimes.
Yeah,
and he does get pushed around by bigger players because he's like a skinny kid, obviously. And he's already shown me good signs.
He gets caught ball watching quite a bit too, but that's a young player thing.
Yeah,
like, that'll change as he gets older. But
you could see his IQ on that end of the floor for sure. Like he plays passing lanes well. He knows like where the ball is moving next and where the next rotation is coming. Like he's already kind of picking some of that stuff up as a rookie already, which is impressive. It's kind of like Halliburton is like this times 5. Like he does not make a mistake. Like it's crazy to say, but like he does not make a mistake as a rookie. He rotates well. I think he's the Kings leader in deflections, and he is a really solid defender. It's like with LaMelo, the only problem with Halliburton is if a guy weighs more than 200 pounds, he's going to move Halliburton out of the way, right? But this rookie class is impressive, and I think people are surprised by it, but to me, it's kind of like I'm not saying it's right on schedule, but I'm not surprised by it because the bill on this draft was there's a lot of good players, a lot of players that have the potential to be really good role players. And I think because people knew that going into this draft, I think a lot of the rookies came in with the mindset of, I know what to do in my role. Like Anthony Edwards' attitude and how he's approached his rookie year. Like I love that kid, especially when he had attitude concerns coming out of college. And I just don't see it at all. He has been playing really well as of late. And then you got guys like Sadiq Bey. Patrick Williams is starting for the Bulls. Like
Emmanuel Quigley, huge.
Emmanuel Quigley has revitalized New York. This has been the Knicks' best point guard since Linsanity. Like literally. And this I'm not surprised. I'm not going to sit here and say like I predicted this rookie class would be really good. I just think the class is really good because we knew that they would be role players who already knew what they were good at and that's how they would survive in the league. So it's been really cool to see this rookie class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be such a weird difference thing about next year, where next year there's a lot of star talent that probably need a lot more development. I think Cade is really the only one that I've seen so far where I go, oh, he's ready to go now.
Yeah.
Everyone else, when you talk about like Kuminga and all the other guys, like there's a little bit of,
I think Jalen Suggs
polish.
Too.
Yeah, there's just a little more polish that needs to happen. Where I think that this class came in a little more ready.
Yeah,
and like you're saying, like they knew what they were good at and they're doing it well. I think the thing with this class is there's a lot of guys where, like, I think LaMelo and maybe Edwards down the line are the only guys where you trust them to be the best player on your team.
Yeah, that's where you would bet on.
Like if, as much as I love Halliburton and I think he's great, if Tyrese Halliburton is the best player on your team, went wrong. Something's wrong.
Yeah,
you have a problem.
Oh, I still have my upside questions about Halliburton. Maybe not as much as because he's already doing what I thought he would be down the road. So I think his ceiling's a little bit higher. But yeah, if he's the best guy on not a championship team, but if you're building around Halliburton as your best player, something went wrong in your rebuild.
Yeah. So again, I think he's one of the perfect pieces that you can get, as like he could be the second or third best guy on any championship team. But if you're relying on him as your quote unquote franchise guy, I think that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can say that about a lot of the guys in this draft class too, where I trust them to be my second or third best player at their peaks, but I don't know if I trust them to be a franchise guy that you're building around. I think LaMelo and Edwards are the only two guys. I love the talent with Wiseman. He's been hurt, so we haven't seen too much of him. But
he shows flashes, but then he shows like he looks like a baby deer out there still.
Yeah, he just gets lost. And I think being on the team with Draymond and Steph and Clay is going to help him and help his development. But at the same time, like, you know, at this point, he just comes off as a little bit more aloof, especially on. I didn't expect the aloofness on. I expected on defense. I didn't expect the amount of aloofness that we see from him on offense, where sometimes he doesn't know where to stand or like how to space the floor.
Yeah,
and like that's a concern. Where that, like to me, that's I
want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he is 19 and he played 3 college games and 15 NBA games. But one thing I am concerned with Wiseman that I've noticed, he doesn't have the best hands.
Yeah, so I noticed that
his hands are huge, and I feel like he should be catching more of the passes that he receives. And
when he catches them, they bobble a little.
When he catches it on the block, he bobbles it a little bit. When they try to lob it to him, when he catches the lob and finishes, it's like, oh shit, there's the athleticism and the talent of Wiseman. But a lot of the times the lob is like he bobbles it and has to bring it back down and go up, but then he'll lose it. Like my little worry with Wiseman, as much as I like the talent, is that I don't know if hands necessarily get better unless like there's like a basketball equivalent of a jug machine or something like they have in football. But I am concerned about the hands.
Because there's a lot of plays, especially when he was starting, there's a lot of plays where you're like, cool, Wiseman catch and then catch, turn and spin, and you have a layup. Yeah. And like instead it's catch, bobble, and then not know what to do with the ball, and then try a weird fade or post up, or just kick it back out, and you're like, well, that's a waste of a possession.
Yeah. And I've noticed, it's funny, I've noticed this with Dwight Howard too, who has been awful like in the last like month and a half. But like even when he was playing well, dude, his hands are awful. He'll mess up lobs. He'll try to put back dunk and he always misses he'll get offensive rebounds like crazy. And then he jumps so high, you think he's going to finish easily with the layup, but then he like bricks it or misses a dunk or can't catch the lob. And it's like, man, like I felt like I watched a lot of Laker games last year. And
he's like that.
And like he was playing well last year, but I am not seeing the Lakers Dwight Howard as of late. And he had the hands problem, I think, with the Lakers too, also. But like, man, now that I'm watching him like every game, I'm just
now he's yours.
He's still the best backup center Embiid's had. But the problem is, like, when you play Dwight and Simmons together, Simmons needs to play with the stretch 5, or else the offensive rating for Dwight Simmons lineups are absolute trash. But anyway, before this podcast ends, we're an hour in, I wanted to talk about the East also, because I think the East is now...
I think the East is more interesting.
I think the East is interesting in the sense of what's going to happen 4 through basically 11, because the Magic have just been snake bitten with injuries. They're decimated. They might trade Vooch at the trade deadline, probably. Evan Fournier.
I feel so bad for them too, because I actually do... Fully healthy, I love the Magic roster.
Yeah, it's.
I like Jonathan Isaac. I like Jonathan Isaac. I like Vucevic. I like Fultz. I like Aaron Gordon. Like
the problem is their offense is 1980s basketball. When you start all those players,
yes,
like the shooting's so cramped. The Cavaliers, if they didn't squeak out that last second win against the Timberwolves, they would have lost 10 in a row. But at this point, they've lost 7 in a row. They've had injuries. Andre Drummond is he's been awful for the Cavs, especially since the Jared Allen trade. He doesn't try anymore, and now there's reports that they're trying to trade him because he's just.
I think the rumor was that they're going to sit him until they can trade him.
Yeah. So. And 4 through 11 is interesting, but I think now we have the 3 teams that have separated themselves. I think Philly, the Bucks have now figured it out. They've hit a recent rough patch, but I think they have figured out like their starting lineup. Hopefully Drew Holiday comes back. And but Bobby Portis, DJ Augustine, Bryn Forbes, they've been upgrades for the Bucks off the bench. They've started to figure some stuff out. The Nets, I think, are starting to at least figure out the offensive pecking order because James Harden has been absolutely brilliant. We forget, I don't know why we always forget this, but like people are now like shocked. It's like, oh, James Harden is passing now. And like he's averaging over 11 assists per game. I'm like, yeah, he led the league in assists like once.
I think the difference is the way that he's doing it now. Because before it was the Rockets Morey ball, like let me dribble at the top of the key and then pass it off to a shooter or kick. Where now he's actually really making plays.
I think when he led the league in assists, the offense was different because Dwight Howard was there, and they ran a lot of pick and roll, and they ran a lot of pick and roll, and so like it was more. And I think Kevin McHale was still coaching at that point. They were still. That was like I'm pretty sure that was the last season. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Dwight for 1 year and then was done. He was
like, Harden is a really elite passer. And so him being the point guard and Kevin Durant, who's one of the most malleable superstar scorers ever, still doing what he does, and Kyrie now basically accepting his role as a 50, 40, 90, 28 per game shooting guard. Like, I like how the Nets have dealt out the pecking order. Obviously, there's part of me that thinks like, when it comes to the playoffs, there's going to be stretches where they really lock in defensively. I believe that. Their defense overall is bad, but I do think for stretches, and they can get stops. And I think in those stretches of stops, they have the offensive firepower to just blow you out of the water because their offense is one of the best in history already. And I think in the playoffs, if they lock in for stretches, I think the defense won't matter as much with them, but that's why I would put them in the same. What's up?
My concern with them is the size.
Yeah, like of course. That is my the size. As soon as they run into Embiid or Giannis, or even like I don't know, Julius Randle, like fucking here we go. Julius Randle. That is a fair point. They like Julius Randle with the season he's having. Even they don't have like the size to contain a bull like that,
Yeah, they just don't have the power. Like as their best defender is probably Kevin Durant.
Yep,
when he locks
32 coming off of an Achilles injury.
And again, Durant's strength has never been physical strength.
Yeah, no.
And so when you have someone when they're like, yeah, you have to guard Julius Randle, like, I don't know how that's gonna work. Durant's gonna foul out, or he's gonna get hurt.
The thing with the Nets though is they'll have close games with like the Hawks, and then they'll lose a high scoring game against the Wizards. But when they've played the Bucks, the Clippers, when they've played the Suns, like when they've played contenders, they win those. They look great. They win those games, and in the playoffs, you're just playing You're playing the best teams at that point. I think with the Bucks more so, I think the Nets have a better shot. The Sixers, I would give them a puncher's chance in a conference finals. But I think with the Bucks, I think the Nets match up better with the Bucks than the Sixers. But the Nets are still in that tier to me with the Sixers and Bucks. I think those are the three clear teams right now, though.
I agree with you there. The thing with the Sixers is once you solve the Joel Embiid problem, which you can't with what they have, then you also have the Ben Simmons problem of just size. The Sixers and the Lakers are so big, and it's why that matchup was so much fun to watch, where they're just both of them it's like watching old 90s basketball.
I have to say it's been an incredible Ben Simmons season. I know I griped earlier about like his offensive approach to start the year, but he's found his way now, and all season, especially this last month, he's been arguably the best defender in basketball. Just the way he can lock up people. Like, he locked up Harden when the Nets played the Sixers. He locked up Damian Lillard in the second half after Dame went crazy on the Sixers in the first half. Ben Simmons locked up Damian Lillard, and it looked like he was like, what the fuck? This like 6'10" guy is moving with me like speed for speed. And it's like, yeah, that's Ben Simmons. And it's been an underrated season for Ben Simmons. And I realize there's still going to be the half court issue in the playoffs, but I don't know if you read the Rob Mahoney piece that he did on The Ringer a few weeks ago, but like the way Joel Embiid is playing right now, I still have concerns about the Sixers half court offense in the playoffs, but the way he is playing right now with how much he's improved his dribble pull-up jumper, which is insane. He's shooting like over 50% on pull-up jumpers, and that's a thing he said he's been working on. He's shooting 54% from mid-range, almost 40% from three, and then we all know what he can do when he gets near the rim. Like, it's wild to say that he's become a legit 3-level scorer at 7'2". And if this improvement is real, which I believe 100% is real, especially if you track how Joel Embiid developed all the way since Kansas. He's like one of those guys that picks up a guitar and after a few tries, he can learn a song, right? That's how he's picked up basketball. That I have to say, I feel pretty good about the Sixers' chances of at least going to the conference finals. I do think they put too much on him because
I don't know if he's going to hold up the rest of the season.
That's the one thing I'm afraid of, because with the shooting talent we have, you know where we rank in 3-point attempts? 28th. That's wild. Yeah. That cannot happen. And it's not just because Embiid's a post-up player or whatever. It's because they're not, for some reason, especially lately, they're not attempting threes at the rate that they should. They have a lot of good shooters. Tobias Harris is back to his form. Seth Curry, Mike Scott, Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton. Like, we have good shooters. They just need to take Danny Green. They just need to take more of them to help alleviate Embiid, because I don't think they're gonna figure out the elite perimeter creation problem, and it's gonna have to be Embiid.
The problem that I see with them too is they do have the issue where Embiid's getting a lot better at it. He's gotten significantly better at it over the years, but he still has the playmaking out of the double issue that a lot of
I think he's gotten. Yeah, I think
I don't know. He's just not kicking it out, and he's forcing up a lot. And when I watch them, you obviously watch them closer than I do, but when you watch them, he puts in a lot of effort on low post in double team situations where it's like, dude, just kick it out and repost, or kick it out and do something else.
See,
there's a cutter here.
Like, I think there's some times where his passing out of double teams is still a thing he needs to work on, but he's improved markedly.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot better.
Like, I think this year you're seeing him invite double teams more, and it won't show up in the assist numbers. He's averaging more turnovers than assists right now, but I'm sure if there was a stat for like hockey assist or hockey assist, where because 5 people are literally gravitating towards him on the block and he does one kick out pass and you swing, like you could count those as Embiid. You could count those as Embiid hockey assists, because but he's gotten better at it. But you're right, there are still times where he doesn't see the double. I don't think he's ever going to be like a Jokic like passer, but if he's like Shaq in terms of basic reads and, you know, getting better at, you know, doing an extra pass ahead over, instead of doing the simple kick out, you know, do the cross court pass, which he's done a few times. Like, I think that's the next step for him. But there are still times where he throws the ball away, he carelessly throws it away, and it's those typical Embiid turnovers that I still get frustrated with. But I think his passing is a big reason why we're seeing the dominant season he's having as well. But you're right. There are definitely times where the old Embiid will show up, but I think that's part of the progression with him. I think if he becomes like a good playmaker, like he's already almost a complete player, but like once he figures it out, the passing out of doubles a little bit more, then he's already cooking with gas. We're going to be cooking with Need for Speed nitrous oxide at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, I to me, the Sixers are my favorite to come out of the East. So
yeah, I would say at this point, I would go.
I know you probably have
a power
optimism.
ranking. If I were to do, I don't want to be like the optimistic fan, but if I had to do a power ranking, like of who I think would come out of the East, I would go Sixers, Nets, then Bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel pretty good about my team. I'm sure you feel good about your team as well.
Yeah,
but
as long as Anthony Davis can come back,
that's true.
I'd want to sit him for a couple months just to make sure he's healthy for when we actually need him, because like they're sleepwalking through the season.
Yeah.
But,
real quickly, also, I wanted to get your gauge on the Miami Heat because they are still a playing team. I know we bought stock on them a week ago. I'm actually going to have somebody on a podcast tomorrow to talk about the Heat. But do you think they could climb up further? They're still 5-5 in their last 10, and they're still figuring some stuff out. They're still recovering from their COVID-related slow start to the season. But they basically have to not win out, but they're 11-15, and they've played 26 games, and that's already more of a third of the season through. So how are you feeling about the Heat?
I'm still holding. I still have diamond hands on them. I think the thing with the Heat is they caught on. They were hot early last year, and then they cooled off, and then they got hot late. And I think that following the trend this year, they were injured and had COVID issues through their first half of their games. I think they're going to take some time to reassess and reanalyze, and then I could see them having a really hot late year, and then
Jimmy Butler's been playing fantastic lately.
Yeah, and take that momentum into the playoffs, because again, they don't have the full complement of their players, or they haven't had them for the entire season. And I think just given more time, it's like what we talked about with the Jazz, where as soon as they hit their stride, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, if you're looking at it right now, like if you're the Knicks and the Hawks, the Knicks are the 7th seed, and the Hawks are the 10th seed,
looking at the teams above them.
And the Raptors are well coached, but they've been up and down as hell all year. And they might be making some trades, and they might trade for Andre Drummond, which I don't think trading for Drummond helps any team if you're trying to win basketball games. But
I mean, he could help a desperate Nets team.
I guess he would definitely provide rebounding, but I don't know about the effort, because that's always been a question with them, especially in Detroit and now with the Cavaliers, especially since the Allen trade. If you've watched some Cavs games since the Allen trade, it's like he's checked out. Like you could just tell on the floor. But the Heat are the sleeping giant in that play-in section, to where all the teams are just like, oh god damn it, I need to get to the 6th seed and get out of the play-in range.
Yeah.
And like I said, Jimmy Butler has been playing well as of late, because he had that slow start when he came back after battling COVID. Bam Adebayo is continuing his ascension as a superstar big. He's just averaging a quiet like 29-5 and elite defense still. And yeah, the Heat are getting their squad back together. And I out of all the bottom feeding teams in the 5 through 10 range, the Heat are probably the most dangerous of them all. I'm starting to get less and less sold on Boston, especially if they don't make any moves at the deadline. And also, it's good for me because, I'm a Sixer fan and fuck the Celtics. But the Heat are they're still a sleeping dog to me. So I just wanted to check. I don't want to sell off my stock yet. I'm still going to have diamond hands. The Wizards, unfortunately, have brick hands, but...
yeah, the Wizards and the Timberwolves. So looking at the bottom of the conferences, the Wizards and the Timberwolves. I don't know what they are, because I like elements of their rosters, and I just don't know what they are. I don't know why they're so low.
Did you see the? Hold on, I need to look up the starting lineup the Wizards played yesterday, because they were basically just like they started Westbrook, Beal, and they started Mo Wagner at the center. They killed the Celtics yesterday, which is hilarious. But yeah, they started Westbrook, Beal, Wagner at the center, Hachimura at the forward, and Garrison Matthews at the other forward. And you looked at that lineup and you're just like, well, this team's going to give up 1,000 points. But they actually didn't, because the Celtics stunk it up yesterday, and the Wizards just happened to play competently, or at least AKA Bradley Beal carried them. But yeah, I like parts of the Wizards roster. I like parts of the Wolves roster too, like you said. It's just that I don't think they're ever going to successfully build teams around Karl Anthony Towns and Bradley Beal, just because, especially with the Timberwolves.
D'Lo.
I just know. Did you say D'Lo? I just know that if Karl Anthony Towns is in with the right organization, you could build a championship team around him.
He's so talented.
He's so talented. And I hate it when, and look, sometimes it's organization, sometimes it's on the player. I don't blame Karl Anthony Towns one bit because the organization, now that they have a new front office, is not as bad. They're still learning the new stuff because Garrison Rosas is a Morey disciple. And so I like the hire there. But I don't think his son, Ryan Saunders. I don't think Ryan Saunders is a good coach. And I just think if Cat went to a different organization, you could build a championship team around Cat. The guy is like perennial 25-12 and is like a 44% 3-point shooter on high number of attempts. Like Zach Lowe has always been bullish on him in terms of calling him the most offensively talented player or center in NBA history. Like he has that potential, and
he does.
He does, and he's efficient as hell. And it's like with the Booker thing. Devin Booker was an efficient scorer on bad teams, or at least in terms of true shooting percentage wise, he was always above league average or right there. And I think if you're an efficient scorer on a bad team, that tells me, okay, let's try to put better players around this guy, like what the Suns did. Now they have a really good, and it's not just, okay, Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, duh. It's Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, Cameron Payne has turned himself into a nice backup center. Mikal Bridges, Javon Carter, like these are all dudes that fit around Devin Booker and Chris Paul and Ayton, of course. But like, if the Wolves get Cade Cunningham, hopefully Karl Anthony Towns won't request a trade at this point because the Wolves would be in the lottery again. But like a Cade and Karl Anthony Towns tandem, just screw everything else. Just do what you can to build around those two, and I hope Karl Anthony Towns is on a winner soon, because I think if you figure it out with him, you got something.
To me, he's going to be a wasted talent guy. Like it's just a waste to see him like this. It's like what we had with
like
KG,
Minnesota Bigs of yesteryear.
Yeah, it's like what we had with KG, right? Same thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be unfortunate, but so the story goes.
Sad times.
Very.
All right, man. Anything else? Anything else to say today?
No, I think that's a good spot to leave it off. We are definitely going to pick our East and West All-Stars for next week, because I think the deadline is next Tuesday. And apparently a lot of people have been struggling with at least the East side of it, because you could put like 20 there's like 20 candidates, especially if you go to the reserve spots. So that'll be interesting trying to sift through all that. But stay tuned for that next week. It should be fun, because can't believe we're already at the All-Star point. But stay tuned for the All-Star teams that we pick and maybe argue about.
I think we'll have we've talked enough where I think we have a pretty clear sense of who we both agree are All-Stars. But we'll go through them we'll make lists, check them twice. We'll see what we got.
The test of a relationship, whether it's pod co-host or real relationships, is
we'll play the newlywed game.
I'm gonna intentionally start a big argument just to test it. No, I'm kidding.
No, we'll play the newlywed game, but instead we'll pick All-Star. We'll pick All-Star starters.
I'm gonna pick somebody wild just to see your react. No, I'm kidding. I won't.
Alex Caruso is starting on my All-Star team.
Shake Milton. But stay tuned for that next week. It should be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. But thanks for listening, and see you next week.
The B.O.B.